The modern generation of outstanding creative people opens new branches of art by showing the familiar phenomena from a completely different side and revealing the versatility of meanings. Nicole Carstens is one of them. Her short but bright life became a mirror of the last decades of the last century, which the Kazakh public had an opportunity to look into, thanks to the joint efforts of the organizers of the international project Building Bridges Between East and West and representatives of the Nicole Carstens Foundation.
Моя сестра, я никогда ее не забуду. Во сне я все еще и днем ее везде увижу.
The idea of holding the exhibition in Almaty comes from Nicole Carstens, ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to Kazakhstan. Nicole is his older sister. Seeing interest in her work among Kazakh cultural figures, he decided to support the project.
Николь, моя сестра, навсегда, любимая сестра. Она очень веселая была всегда, и, к сожалению, она умерла.
Nicole is my sister, and she will always be my lovely sister. She was always very funny. Unfortunately, she died. She was 43 years old, and I'm 4 years younger, so I'm her little brother. Now, 19 years later, I realized that she was very young, that it was just the beginning.
Высокий возраст, а сейчас, 19 лет позже, я только реализирую, что это было очень мало.
If she was still alive, I'm sure that her works would be in the collections both in Paris and in New York, in the most famous museums.
Жила бы, я убежден, что она, наверное, в Париже, в Нью-Йорке, в самых известных музеях ее работы были в коллекциях.
Nicole Carstens was born in 1958 in The Hague. She was engaged in drawing from early childhood, but finally gave herself up to creativity, having already received the profession of a geographer, as her passion for the visual arts turned out to be stronger. After completing art courses, she began her career with painting. Although she became a successful portrait painter, she continues to experiment. In 1987, Nicole moved to New York, where she studied at the School of Art and Design. The cultural environment of the world capital of conceptual art has saturated her work with the ideas of pop art, avant-garde, and new realism. In the last decade of the century, she has worked with objects from everyday life, which she transformed into other configurations with surprising new meaning. Nicole lived and worked between Amsterdam and New York. To pursue art, she had to earn money as a flight attendant. This is how her photo project about the life of people in airlines was born. Since the mid-1980s, the artist's works have appeared at numerous solo and group exhibitions in Europe and America. In 2001, Nicole passed away after a serious illness. The Nicole Carstens Foundation has collected her legacy, and for the public, the artist's ideas continue to live. For several months, the foundation was engaged in the selection and transportation of works to Almaty. Kazarian Art Center became the abode that hosted the anthology of the artist's works. The gallery has existed for 6 years. Its founder is the famous Kazakhstani sculptor Eduard Kazarian. During this time, about 50 art projects have been presented in the 3-level space, including several foreign authors from France, Germany, Spain, Georgia, and other countries. Now the Netherlands is also on the list.
Многие работы мне очень нравятся, вот какие-то объекты, то есть мне кажется, они очень интересны. Вот и мне захотелось показать эту художницу у нас.
I really like many of her works. I think they are very interesting. So I wanted to show this artist here. I think that such exhibitions can broaden the horizons of our art connoisseurs. It's also a constant exchange. Initially from the 90s, we as artists were eager to exhibit in the West. All these new spaces, new people, new environment in general was very interesting. Now foreign artists began to exhibit here, and they are also interested in spaces in Kazakhstan because it provides new spectators, a new environment that is also unusual for them.
Потому что это новый зритель, новая тоже необычная для них среда.
The creation of a new exhibition for the gallery owner is a painstaking and thoughtful process, where each object must be in its place in order to then sound with other objects in unison.
И поэтому в эту выставку я скажем.
I almost didn't interfere with this exhibition. I'm completely at the mercy of the mentors and curators, art historians, and the representatives of the Nicole Foundation. It's valuable for me that they came here and created this exhibition in their own vision. When they arrived, my exposition was still held here.
Проходила моя экспозиция полностью во всех залах. Вот, мне было...
I was pleased to know that they really liked it. They had an idea to combine our works. I honestly tried to dissuade because I wanted this project to sound more, so to speak, purely.
более, так сказать, чисто звучал. Вот, но тем не менее...
But nevertheless, I conceded 3 works. We left them in the exposition because they believed that they were needed there. Maria Bloom, curator of the exhibition, is the founder of the Nicole Carstens Foundation. She is united with the artist not only by friendship, but also by a common view of the world that has absorbed the main tendencies of art of the 20th century.
In this space, I was also thinking about this theme of the East and West meeting. And so I asked Eduard Kazarian if I could hang one of his works, because for me, coming from Amsterdam, it's really interesting to see what an artist from Kazakhstan is doing. And that's, of course, what we try to do with this whole exhibition, that we look at each other and think about each other, and then in the end, we will sort of appreciate each other.
Before plunging into Nicole's universe, visitors of the exhibition took part in a lecture by art critic Ekaterina Resnikova.
Мне очень понравился подход кураторов выставки, которые, организуя пространство...
I really liked the approach of the exhibition curators, who, while organizing the space, deliberately left the chronological principle, because she was so organic that no matter what kind of fine art or what artistic language she turns to, she appears as an integral person. Quest for Essence is the name of an exhibition that combines watercolors, installations, collages, and photographs. Life itself in various forms.
We see some of her drawings and watercolors she made when she was about 25 years old. You can see that she developed a sense of color and form. And she wasn't really looking so much at reality, but a lot of the work is abstraction and how she perceives, say, for example, nature and the atmosphere around her. She also is enormously interested in technical experiments, because by combining color or little pieces of newspapers.
The New York period marks a dramatic change in materials, new methods, concepts, and horizons.
In that time in New York, it was really a trend that artists tried to get reality into art. So they started using ready-made objects or found materials. And she's doing that too. I think this sculpture, for example, is a very good example of, because when you look at it, it's shiny and it's a beautiful shape, but what it really is, they are pads to clean pots in a kind of copper band, but she creates something else with it, but does use material which you can just buy in a shop, and she doesn't really transform it.
Nicole used readily available materials, aluminum cans, bags, rubbers, paper napkins, and plastic. She took it all out of context in order to question established meaning.
Художник же тоже, он постоянно находится в поиске. И здесь важный момент, мне кажется, доверие художнику.
The artist is constantly in search, and what is important here is trust in the artist. Since the artist urged people to look at this as a work, there is no need to think, I can do it myself. Think about, what did the artist want to convey? After all, this is a person who has devoted her whole life to art. The artist goes her own way, so if she offered the viewer some object, although the meaning is not immediately clear, it will be, maybe in a year, in a week, or in 5 years, what will come to this? This is completely normal too.
Придем к этому, это совершенно тоже нормально.
Nicole was particularly interested in feminism and gender relations. She provoked feelings using everyday materials traditionally considered feminine, related to the household. She explores stereotypical processes of judgment and prejudice. Nicole said, I create an imaginary universe in order to upset the usual associations. I challenge our assumptions about consistency, authority, bipolar opposition, single subject, fixed meaning, and autonomy.
Таково, оно вообще принадлежит всем. И вот эти границы это...
In general, art belongs to everyone, while these boundaries are a convention. And of course, our people will certainly understand this and feel this pulsation, this idea. Let's say the search for truth, the search for an eternity that the artist dedicated her life to. I think this is very important for Kazakhstan and for any artist to seek and find their own path in life, in art and in creativity. I think Nicole did it to the fullest.
В жизни, в искусстве и в творчестве. Я думаю, Николе это удалось в полной мере.
Travel played an important role in her life and her development as an artist. While working as a flight attendant, Nicole created the Blue Notes project, which was successfully presented at the Rotterdam Museum.
She always had been interested in flying. Even when she was 12 and was for the first time in an airplane, she saved a little bag with sugar because she was so impressed with the logo and the fact that you could get things like that. And these photographs are all from that series, and there are many ones which are suggestive of this is really something going into the future in a new space. You don't know what's happening. You see the boredom in waiting with your suitcases, and what happens in your mind when you sit there. Are you thinking about what there will be in the future for you, or are you just tired and thinking, I want to go home? This one also is very interesting, I find, nowadays, because we all have mobile phones, but we never realize that the stewardesses get out of the airplane and the first thing they do is call their friends or, I don't know, their partner, parents, saying that they have safely landed. So you will never see something like this anymore. In that sense, it also becomes a document of a time past.
Nicole Carstens knew how to capture a moment, so much so that she herself remained in eternity. Now she talks to public through her works.
Самая главная цель этой программы наведения мостов между Востоком и Западом – это все-таки знакомить.
The main goal of the program of building bridges between East and West is to acquaint Kazakhstan with European art and to acquaint Europe with Kazakh art.
На протяжении уже 10 лет мы этим занимаемся, и я считаю, что все эти усилия, они необходимы для того, чтобы...
And we have been doing this for 10 years already. And I think that all these efforts are necessary for the Kazakh audience to discover the artists who work in the West. And the exhibited works of Edward Kazarian and the works of Nicole make a comparison between these places.
Эдуарда Казаряна и работы Николь, вот они как раз-таки и делают сравнение.
The vernissage gathered devoted adherents of modern art from Almaty, famous artists, art critics and journalists from the sphere of culture. Now you can visit the unique exhibition through our program.
Изучение европейской культуры в Казахстане – это очень большая задача.
The study of European culture in Kazakhstan is a very big task, both for the older generation and for the younger. And thanks to such meetings, events, and the people who founded it all, the recognition increases and the topics are quite interesting. This seems to be quite an extraordinary approach to art, because usually it includes either sculptures or paintings. But here there are reference books in the paintings and some kind of paper and newspaper, and together they play beautifully and very subtly. Nicole showed that it's possible to turn the simplest objects into something light and valuable.
Самые простые предметы превратить во что-то более невесомое и более такое, не знаю, наверное, какое-то бесценное.
Nicole Carstens' exhibition answers the main question: what is the essence of a creator? What is his role in world society? Studying the external manifestation of objects and their social significance, the artist shows a conceptual perspective, along which the thinking viewer, together with the creator, sets off along the path of cognition.